Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MCU in review, where I review every single Marvel movie to date. My name is Jacob, but you can call me Chip. Today's movie is Iron Man. Very first one, started it all. So let's take a look. I remember one night my dad called me down to the basement to see if I wanted to watch Iron Man. I sat down and honestly, I don't remember much of it. I was confused for half the movie, constantly asking why this is happening and why that is happening. I don't know if it was just because I wasn't paying attention or because I was a dumb 11-year-old. Probably a little of both. Besides the confusion, I actually remember really enjoying that movie. The action was cool, the CGI looked good, and there was explosions everywhere. Like I said, I was a dumb 11-year-old. Over the years, there was a lot of scenes from Iron Man that really stuck out to me. Like where Tony catches that car with the family inside, when he tries to fly and smacks into the wall behind him, the whole dogfight scene, and when Tony catches that car. I don't know why, but that scene always stuck out to me. Anyways, let's get into the MCU in review. Iron Man. And just a disclaimer, I've never actually read any of the comics, so I'm just basing it off of the MCU in general. Tony Stark, CEO of Stark Industries and billionaire playboy, goes on a business trip to Afghanistan to show off his newest weapon, the Jericho missile. His convoy gets attacked and he is captured by an extremist group called the Ten Rings. While captured, Tony meets Yinsen, a scientist that saved Tony's life by putting an electromagnet in Tony's chest to prevent shrapnel from entering his heart. The Ten Rings want Tony to build the Jericho missile for them. Tony reluctantly agrees, but he and Yinsen secretly form a plan to escape. Tony builds the arc reactor, a device that is able to produce a massive amount of energy. Tony uses it to power the electromagnet in his body. He and Yinsen make the Mark I suit and attempt to escape. Yinsen unfortunately doesn't make it out alive, and Tony destroys the Stark weapons that the Ten Rings has and flies off. He is found by the US military and is brought back home. He holds a press conference where he declares that Stark Industries will be no longer making any weapons. Tony's partner and mentor, Obadiah Stane, tells Tony to lay low. Tony replaces his arc reactor with an upgraded one and gives the old one to Pepper Potts, his assistant. Tony then spends all his time making the Mark II and Mark III suit. He then finds out that Stark Industries has been dealing under the table to the Ten Rings and plans to do something about it. Using the Mark III suit, he flies to a small village, Gulmir, where the Ten Rings are terrorizing the civilians. He stops the Ten Rings, destroys their cache of Stark weapons, and flies home. We then see Obadiah show up to a camp of the remaining Ten Rings members. It turns out Obadiah asked them to kill Tony, but they refused because they were not paid enough. Obadiah has the rest of the members killed and takes the Mark I suit that the Ten Rings has managed to salvage. Tony sends Pepper to Stark Industries to copy some files so he could see what the company's really up to. She then finds out about Obadiah's hit on Tony and his plans to create his own suit. Before Pepper can warn Tony, Obadiah incapacitates Tony and then steals his arc reactor. Tony then crawls down to the basement and then finds Pepper's gift to Tony, his first arc reactor in a glass case. He smashes it open and gets the arc reactor connected. Pepper and a couple of agents go to arrest Obadiah, but Obadiah escapes with his new suit powered by the arc reactor he stole from Tony. Tony flies over and Obadiah and Tony fight. Tony then tells Pepper to overload the big arc reactor and the blast ends up killing Obadiah. Tony is given a cover story at the press conference the next morning, but he ignores it and tells the world that,
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
After the credits, we see Tony approached by Nick Fury, telling him about the Avengers initiative. So let's talk about this movie. Let's start with that amazing opening. It gets you hooked with Tony's character, some intense action, and a great scene where we see Tony captured by the Ten Rings, and bam, we get the opening title. I love the way Robert Downey Jr. can show daze, then confusion, and then a worried face in a matter of seconds. Also, Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony perfectly. I know you hear it everywhere, but it's true. Tony Stark will always be Robert Downey Jr. in people's eyes. Anyways, back to the movie. I love the entire trapped in a cave, forced to make weapons segment. It's about 25 minutes, but it does not feel drawn out at all. Yinsen is a great character, but I wish we would have gotten to see more of him. I don't think it's that he's underutilized or anything. I just like his character so much, even in that short amount of time. He has such great scenes and dialogue, especially.
Thank you for saving me.
Don't waste it. Don't waste your life.
The middle movie is really good too. I really love the scenes where Tony is building and testing the Mark II suit. It's just a lot of fun, and it has the right amount of action happening with some really funny moments too. The Mark III suit-up scene is also great, but the CGI can look a little hokey sometimes. Like, I really notice it when Tony is getting his helmet put on, and it just doesn't look very good. Other than that, the CGI really holds up. It looks really good, and it's not used that often. They used a lot of practical props in this movie, and it really pays off. I love when Tony goes to Gulmira and dispatches all the Ten Ring guys like it's nothing, and then it's immediately followed up by the dog chase scene. Like, that is just so much fun. Just some funny dialogue between Rhodes and Stark, and some cool looking action. I love it so much, especially when the plane turns and reveals Tony underneath. And finally, the final fight in the movie, Iron Man versus Ironmonger. I think Jeff Bridges has such an evil and intimidating voice, and I just can't get enough of it. I haven't seen him in much, but I really like him in this movie. I know this line is pretty much a meme at this point.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
But come on, you can't help but get scared when you hear his voice. I feel like I'm the scientist that can't do what I'm asked to. He has such a menacing presence, and I feel like he does not get enough credit. People always say that he's just an Iron Man, and that's not interesting. Well, you may be right about that, but goddammit, I think that the Ironmonger is badass. Look at this suit. It has elements of the original Mark I with some new stuff too. He's an absolute unit, and it's awesome. I love the suspensions that connect all over the body. I love how his flight is just basically rocket boosters attached to his feet, and I even love the way his suit opens up. It's just amazing to me. I know people were upset about the 10 rings and the Mandarin getting thrown out of the movie, but I think the Ironmonger really makes up for it. Especially to someone who hasn't read the comics, I think it's really cool. And plus the 10 rings come back in the third movie, but we'll talk about that when we get there. And finally, do I even need to mention the end credits scene? It's the goddamn Avengers. That is awesome. This is a great movie with a good story, amazing characters, and fun action. It's definitely one of Marvel's most recognized and loved films. It was the beginning of something great. Even if you don't like this movie, you have to admit that the MCU would not be what it is today without this movie. This movie has changed the movie industry as we know it. Iron Man brought back a shunned and discredited actor, Robert Downey Jr., back into the spotlight. The director, Jon Favreau, felt like Robert Downey Jr. would fit Tony so well, and they had a lot in common. And he was not wrong. Downey nails Tony Stark. Easily one of the best actors embodying a character in all of cinema. Everything that Downey does is amazing, especially the dialogue. They really wanted to focus more on the story and action of this movie, so they improvised a lot with the dialogue. Jeff Bridges is quoted as saying that he needed to realize that it was just a $200 million student film, and he just needed to have fun with it. No script or rehearsals, just fun. So after each review, I plan on rating the movies in order from favorite to least favorite. I don't really have a defined list, and I feel like watching all the movies, I might as well rate it. Well, right now, Iron Man is the only one on his list, so it's simultaneously the best and the worst. So that is what I think of Iron Man. It was a great first start and it had Marvel going. I plan to post one of these videos every Sunday until the release of Avengers 4. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. The next movie I'll be doing is The Incredible Hulk, so I'll see you guys then.